I'd like to invite you to my new podcast, Move Your Mind, where we have real conversations with real people and give real advice. On today's episode, I want to welcome Hannah Wallace. Hannah's a writer and creative who champions female empowerment and spiritual activism. As someone living with a disability and being a wheelchair user, she's passionate about breaking down barriers around the topic and bringing awareness through her content. Her mission is to help others around find a way to live and thrive within their personal centre and find grace within that space. I've known Hannah for some time, and I personally find her to be one of the most positive people I've ever met. Just another reminder that the Move Your Mind book is now available globally. You can find all of the links at nickbracks.com/book, and the Move Your Mind community is now live. It's a community space we've developed for you guys. It's got all of our courses, it's got live events, guest speakers, the ability for you all to interact and form private groups to grow together. You can find all of the links at moveyourmind.me. Hannah, thank you so much for making the time to come and have this chat today. We're actually talking just before, and a lot of interesting topics were coming up, so which is always what happens. So I'm hoping that we can organically go back into those. I find before, and then actually often after as well with these interviews, I'll stop recording and then you keep chatting and then you're like, oh, we should still be recording this. But anyway, thank you for coming on. And yeah, I really appreciate it. I'm glad that I've got this chance to have a chat to you.
Yeah, no, it's really great to be here, and amazing, obviously, that Fab connected us. So it's amazing, isn't it, how that one person can connect people all over the world, and we can do this.
Yeah, I've said that like so many times. I started this podcast like mid last year, and the probably the best thing about it has been that it's like forces you're reaching out to people all over the world to interview, and then through that you meet other people that introduce you to other people, and you just get to meet. And also, I mean, it's not often you get to sort of sit down. I mean, it's not face to face, but it's the closest thing through Zoom, and have a really sort of focused conversation with someone you've never met. It's like it's the best part about doing it, isn't it?
And obviously you're going to come on my podcast as well, and I think it's really interesting because obviously we've been in a situation, as we were discussing before, where we've been very disconnected as humans, and actually it just brings people back to that place of more like intimacy and reconnecting people to themselves and to others, and then through that connection it shares out to the world, which is just amazing.
Exactly, which I think we need. I mean, there's so many great podcasts coming out now, and we need more of that. It's more of that realism in a world right now where there's so much disconnection and so much distraction and so much fakeness. And I think people do respond to, these real conversations. They want to hear it.
And also things that are kind of what I would say unfiltered and kind of, that are actually, like you say, real, where people are showing up, they're not airbrushed, they're not showing up, they're just being themselves and actually telling the truth. Because I think a lot of the time, if things are curated in a certain way, we're not always getting the bigger picture. Whereas actually, the great thing about doing a podcast and things like this, it allows us to just come and share as it comes, which I think is really cool.
Exactly. If it's curated, or you're putting too much effort into preparing, or how you look, or all those sort of things, it automatically puts a shield up where you're probably not going to be as open just to talk about whatever, comes to mind in that moment, and things that you really do, you really are thinking or care about. So I think it's a really good point.
I was going to say, I did wash my hair this morning. I was going to say, I did wash my hair.
You washed your hair?
I did wash my hair because I have been lazy during pandemic, and like I do go a little bit extra where it's like, just stick it up. But I thought, do you know what? I'm going to make a bit of effort for this.
I mean, we've got to present in somewhat. I mean, I came back from the gym and I was covered in sweat and had a shower. So look, really, we're not telling the whole truth here. We do put a bit of effort in, but it still opens that forum to have a more sort of honest conversation. But yeah, before we sort of get into everything, are you able to give a little bit of a background on yourself and sort of how you came to where you are today?
Absolutely. So basically, up until the age of 17, I, should we say, had a very busy, driven life, music, drama, performing arts. At the same time, I was pretty wild, having a good time. There was things that were going on in my body, but because I was quite a driven, kind of get on with it person, I just got on with it. And then at the age of 17, overnight, my life changed from being, this very vibrant person to basically being in bed for months, basically unable to function, getting diagnosed at the time with what we just thought was glandular fever. And for anyone listening that doesn't know what that is, it is also known as EBV. Epstein-Barr virus. So that's what we just thought it was, but it was very extreme, Nick. It was to the point where, people were coming to see me who were very used to their kind of wild, crazy friend, the friend that was in the club that takes their clothes off. That was me, right? And this is me. So that was me. And then they were coming to see their friends, like basically this shell of a person. So for quite a few months, I was like this. And then my mum and I sought some like alternative therapy, and doctors just didn't really know what to do. They were like, we don't understand what's happened. We know something's wrong. So eventually I managed to get a little bit back on my feet, go back into life. And when I started to do that, what that triggered was a depression that I never thought, I know this sounds crazy, I never thought I would be because I just wasn't like, not that that was a judgment at the time, but I just it wasn't really something that ever affected me. Because I'd had a really positive school life. Yeah. So it swept me into this really deep depression. And I think it was a trauma from, all those months of being deeply unwell and not kind of being able to even process an emotion because I was that sick, if that makes sense. So basically I just thought at this point, okay, it's taken me a little bit of a while to recover. I'm really depressed right now, but I was trying to get on with my life, and physically I still wasn't getting better. Eventually this left me not being able to progress with any education past the age of 18, and all my friends going off to university and doing all the kind of normal things, and me becoming more ill again. And at this point, they were like, we know something's wrong, but we still don't know what's wrong with you. So they labeled me with like chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, and just said, you're just going to basically, and this is not a joke, Nick, a doctor actually said to me, you're just going to have to drop out of life, which is a kind of really scary thing to say to a 19-year-old. Thankfully,
it's horrible.
Horrible, yeah, at the time. And I mean, this
shocking.
Was, shocking. It was like, this was 19, 20 years ago. And I think there's a very different, we're in a very different time now. But thankfully, due to, us being very open as a family to alternative stuff, we were like, okay, we'll see what we can do. And I was still really struggling depression wise, because I think it's like a case of who wouldn't struggle if you had dreams and a life ahead of you, and then that's taken like overnight, and you everything you're doing is not working. So eventually it became quite dark for me, and I woke up one morning when I was about 20, 21 and was like, I can't do this anymore. I need to do something with my mind, because if I don't fix my mind, whatever's happening to me physically, it's gonna, I felt like it was going to tip me over the edge in the end, if that, to be honest with you. So I made that commitment to myself. I thought, if I can't fix my body, the one thing I can have control of here is my mind. So I did everything I could, therefore, after of learning tools, techniques, anything I could get my hands on, as well as still doing other things to support my body. And I managed to turn that around. So I managed to even though physically my life wasn't ideal, I no longer basically, felt I could function and I wasn't crying all the time, and, kind of didn't even want to be there at some point. And to be honest, it's understandable. I was grieving that 17-year-old who was lost, when that.
Oh, for sure.
So basically, fast forward 10 years later from this, I'd kind of learned a way to navigate and manage life. And I felt quite equipped by that point. A friend of mine on Facebook said to me, I think the doctors have got this wrong, because I was having a lot of other issues. And he said, I think you've got this thing called POTS. And I was like, look, mate, I really appreciate your help, but I can't go to my doctor and say, my mate Tim on Facebook says, I think you've got this problem, like it's like one of those nightmares that doctors are like, people come to us with a Google diagnosis. So he gave me some like help on setting this up to be able to go with some evidence. So I went to my doctor and I said, look, this is a long shot, but someone has said that this could be the problem. And she had to Google it. Okay. So this is how rare it was.
Yeah.
And she said, I think your mate's right. And, and you have one of those moments of, because I'd been having this really racing heartbeat. And I know it sounds crazy because once you've had a mental health diagnosis, you just assume you're always living with anxiety. And I assumed, well, it's probably fairly normal. So she basically said to me, I'm really sorry because clearly there might be something we've missed here. So she fast forwarded me through the system. By the time they diagnosed this POTS thing and I saw a consultant, he looked at me and said, I think they've got this really wrong. He says, I think you've got this, but I also think that you've actually got a genetic condition which they've missed. And that's why you've been getting worse. And I need to send you through the right channels to get this diagnosed. And it was a really strange experience for me because mentally by this point, I was in a really good place. But it's a very strange thing when someone tells you that where you had hope before, that suddenly someone was potentially going to tell you something and I'd wanted it. I know it sounds crazy, but I'd wanted to know for so long because in my gut, we were talking about our gut beforehand. I knew in my gut something wasn't right. I knew it. And even the people around me were like, are you sure they haven't got this wrong? But I knew it in my gut. But at the same time, knowing that this would be something that I would have to learn to live with, I knew was going to be a new level of mental adjustment. So they eventually diagnosed me with this Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and it was genetic through my mother line. And it was like my entire world changed because by this point, I'd spent some years even thinking sometimes, am I just mad? Have I just like made all this up that I'm experiencing in my body? And suddenly for somebody to take you really seriously in the medical profession and saying, no, like we're really sorry. And it was a really surreal experience. So I, had to learn to adjust my kind of mental capacity. And then that led me really on this journey then to think, okay, I've learned a lot by this point. How can I now go out as the years have gone on and actually help people? Which has led me to the place where I am now, where I'm, helping people find grace in their life and also helping people to not bypass what's going on, but help them integrate their darkness and light. And like we were sharing, find that space in the middle. Find that no matter what's going on with you, there's always a way to optimize where you're at. Whether you're at, some of us are going to be at like 25%, whatever percentage of life you're at, you can still find a way to optimize that. And I think it comes down to our minds, doesn't it? And obviously this is about our minds, this podcast essentially. And I think if we can learn to utilize our mind in the right way, it doesn't mean we're not going to have bad times sometimes because that's human. But we can learn to work with it and we can learn to kind of create this kind of what I would say almost like a co-creative relationship, isn't it, with our mind, on our body and our soul. And when we do that, I think we can change our lives.
Definitely. And well, thank you for sharing that whole story. I mean, there's so many things in there that we could, dissect and chat about and so many good points. And I guess even in my own story and what I went through, I can draw on or relate to so many things you said there. But I think, it's such a difficult thing in going through what you went through and that sort of identity crisis and those sort of things. But I think when you reflect on these things as well, often the learning is, rather like looking at it as almost a gift that you at a young age had to look deep into your soul and question things and force yourself to evolve emotionally at a level that some people never do in their entire life, or some people it takes them, until I don't know, their 40s or 50s, or something dramatic happens where you hit such a rock bottom that you then have to go through that thing. So I guess it's like a blessing and a curse what you went through, but there's so many interesting things, that you mentioned in there.
Definitely. And I think what you've said there, I mean, as you can imagine, I often have said this to people, that there's always going to be a part of me that there used to be for years, I'd always be like, as you do, like, I just wish this hadn't happened. Like, but I knew at the end of the day, what you said, that it had given me that experience. And like you said yourself, you haven't quite lived sometimes when, and along the way, believe me, like, because I was naturally a very rebellious person, sometimes I made quite bad choices. I think as well that I didn't always help myself, in the sense that I would either push myself or decide to do things that probably I shouldn't have been doing, and then I'd make myself more unwell. But I think that's how we learn to regulate. And I think as well, sometimes for me, it was a case of, if I didn't try those things, and if I didn't try sometimes to go and kind of do, should we say, and I don't want to say quote unquote normal things, but if I sometimes didn't go and try to do those things, it would have just messed me up. And, it was a really surreal experience for me, because obviously up until about 24, 25, as you know, I use a wheelchair. I mean, luckily I can still walk, shall we say, a little bit and move and function. But that for me was like the most crazy. Am I allowed to swear?
You can swear.
It was really fucked up, because obviously, as you can imagine, suddenly even though I looked really well, basically, even when I was really ill, really underweight, couldn't digest food properly, I still looked really, I'm not in a like brag mode, but I still looked, what you'd say to the outside world, really good. So suddenly I was transported from this place of the visibility, the way people viewed me changed, the way society viewed me, the way, I guess for me, it was like suddenly, oh my God, no matter, it's kind of a weird thing, like no one's going to like me, people are going to judge me. And it was just all this crazy stuff. So I think it was a case of having to learn to even adapt within that situation as well. And, it was a really humbling experience, realizing that actually, as an ex-boyfriend said to me when, I was battling with him about it, he was like, what is the problem here? And I said, well, what people are going to say. He said, but does it really fucking matter? And I was like, probably not, but, and I'm really grateful. And I say this, I am really grateful that he was quite forceful in the fact that previous to that, basically, Nick, I had been going, so it got so bad how much difficulty I'd had like getting around and stuff. I would say go somewhere with someone, and then I'd say to them, oh, I can't do that, so you just go and do that and I'll wait here. And at the time, in this particular case, we were going to Rome, and he was like, so you want to go to Rome and you want to sit and do nothing, because that's what's going to happen. And it was actually really liberating, despite the fact, obviously, I was fearing everyone was going to look at me to just get on with it. And I had to be honest, it gave my life back. Like, and, it's actually, I mean, look, I can't take away the fact people are going to look sometimes. It's curiosity, right? I can't get away from the fact people are going to ask me weird questions, because it is what it is. But I also am really happy now that I can do really so many things now, and have no limitations. And it's bloody brilliant, to be honest with you.
Thank you so much for supporting Move Your Mind. We're expanding the offerings of the organisation, and we're tailoring everything we do to suit you guys and to try and answer to all of your needs and the questions that you send in. The book is available globally. You can find all of the links at nickbracks.com/book. And we've just released the Move Your Mind community. We've currently got a men's community group, a women's community group, a general group. We're going to be loading up other groups, and you can find all of the links at moveyourmind.me. This group's been created based on the needs of what we've heard and learnt throughout running Move Your Mind. And we have live events, we've got courses, we've got huge amounts of value, the ability to share information, share ideas, work in groups together to grow and share your learnings, to learn about different topics. You get email reminders. There's a whole lot of features in there. We're constantly updating it, and we're so excited to share it with you. You can find all of the information about it at moveyourmind.me. Definitely. And I think it's a more extreme example again of what we all face every day, where we were talking about this before we started the interview as well, we all worry, or we're conditioned to worry about so many different things. If I do this, what will happen? What if someone judges me? What if I want to live an unconventional life? What if I'm not married at the age of 30 or 40 or don't own a house by then? Does that mean I'm a failure? Does that mean this is not right? What if I do this? I faced it when I was moving back to America at the moment, and everyone was saying, Nick, you're crazy. I had my parents sitting me down, pleading with me not to do it. I was being told left, right, and center. And I was like, hang on, I'm not committing it. I felt like I was committing a crime. I was like, what the hell? So we're all conditioned in that way. But then when you start to sort of just do things that are right for you, you're not doing, stupid things that are just, for the sake of it. It's doing things that, you really want to do, or it may be even taking a risk or whatever it is. No one really cares, everyone. And I try and remind myself, if you think about your own life, where just the amount of things we personally have to deal with each day to get through the day and to achieve what we're trying to do, we don't have time to sit there and think about, my friend Simon, why is he doing that? Actually, you know what? I'm going to judge him for that. I'm going to, spend 2 hours thinking about what he did. No one has time. No one cares. So you may as well just go and bloody live how you want to live.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing. It was the interesting thing for me when you say about unconventional, because I didn't have those conventional things. Okay, going to university, then going traveling, then getting I was quite, should we say, I was quite kind of fluid in my life, and, wasn't like, oh, I need to have a boyfriend or I'm going to spend the rest of my life with now at the age of 23, whereas quite a lot of people I know did. Then they got married and then they've got kids. And, I did have so many issues with comparison and judgment until I just had to get hold of myself and be like, the only person, like what you said, I'm actually judging more than anything is myself. And do you know what? And so what, I guess some people might judge you, but it doesn't matter anyway. And I think it's actually,
it's their problem if they want to judge you, not yours.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it does come, and I think if we break down what's going on a lot of the time with, mental health, and when people are in those positions and situations, it's judgment that is what is feared the most. The embarrassment of maybe saying to somebody, I'm really struggling. I've been quite open the whole time about it to the people around me. But I know so many people who, despite all the awareness that we have now, despite, people are talking about, there's still this fear, isn't there? There's still this shame of having to say that I'm not coping, or, what this situation I'm in is giving me, issues and stuff. It's just crazy. And I think, that's why having conversations like this and, continuing to push the barriers and continue to if people are sharing something very intimate about themselves, I think it's positive, because if one person can do something, it allows another person to say, okay, I can do that too.
100%. And I mean, that's how I fell into the work I do. I had my own story that played out very publicly in Australia, and that led to me eventually talking publicly about what I went through, and then getting asked to do talks. I just kept doing it for the last 10 plus years, because I've never found anything, as simple that has such an effect, where it's just going and being vulnerable, showing, being honest. And then you really see an effect, because it's just letting people know that, hey, it's okay to talk about what you're going through. And I was saying this to someone the other day. I mean, imagine how much more simple the world would be, and how many problems would be eliminated if everyone just simply, put forward the actual honest, real version of themselves, and we didn't have any of these barriers. You would eliminate so many issues, because so many people are acting out or behaving in certain ways for validate themselves because of insecurity, or it's, putting on a front, or I need to make more money, or I need to do this, or I need to judge this person or do that, or, and then conflicts and just how the world's run. A lot of it is on, capitalism or greed or different things that if we could just eliminate a lot of that thinking and just be comfortable being ourselves, you don't really need that much day to day in life. And I sort of had that realization a while ago, because I'm naturally a very competitive person, similar to what you were sort of saying about, what you had to grapple with that identity crisis. And I was always never satisfied and always needing more. And then I realized, hang on, the actual core things I care about and that I'm doing daily, I could basically do it if I had no money. So who cares? Just focus on that. If the other stuff comes, good, but it's not the be all end all. It's not the thing that we should be focusing on, which I think we need to have that shift in our thinking more broadly.
I think it comes down to this fact that people try, when you're not living conventionally or you're choosing differently, we're no longer subscribing to the boxes and the labels. And it's, what we were saying about the black and the white and that place in the middle, that sometimes we have to break out of those boxes and find that place in the middle. And it's about doing, I say this, I've written about this quite extensively as well, but learning to dance to your own rhythm. We all have different rhythms and we all kind of respond and harmonize and find balance in different ways. Imagine, like what you said, if we stopped looking at what's going on the outside and said, what do I really want? Because obviously we're all going to have different aspirations, different needs, different desires. And, it's such a powerful question to be like, what do I really want? How do I really want to feel? And, how could I make that happen? How can I bridge that gap between what I want, how I want to feel, and what I can do to get there? But I think it's quite scary, because it's like if someone says to you, in a friendship, relationship, anything, if someone says, well, what do you want? It's quite a powerful question, and it can be quite scary for people, because we don't often say to somebody, what do you really want? Because we're actually told what we should be doing. Yeah, and we're often told this is what you should be doing. This is how your life should look. This is, and if you're going to be a bit more rebellious there, or you're going to say no to that, you could come into problems, and that's going to be bad for you and in the long term. And, but actually, by tuning into what you need and what you want, it not only will it put you more in your inner balance and reconnect you on a deeper kind of spiritual and soul level into your heart and to your mind, that will serve you for the rest of your life, because you will no longer be in that discord between your mind and your body and your heart.
Yeah, exactly. You feel just become much more centered, and you're able to self-sustain rather than constantly needing more and more and more. And it's interesting, like what you're saying, because I think a lot of people on that level, and I've met so many people that are very wealthy and have different things, and they're constantly, they think they say to you, no, but I know what I want. This is what I want. But then it's like, hang on, do you actually know what you want? Because all the behavior I'm seeing is you need more money, you need more stimulation, more of this, that, and the other to feel okay. That doesn't seem sustainable. But they say, no, I know myself so well. That's what I need. It's like, well, no. I'm not, I have no right to say yes or no for any, everyone's different, but it seems like you need to dig deeper. So I think it's fine. I think that's the hardest thing with a lot of this stuff. It's sort of, people can hear it, but then having them have their own realization of, how do I peel back some layers on myself? Because it's exactly what you said. And I don't judge anyone for it. I mean, I think I'm lucky that through extreme circumstance like you, I had to confront it, but most people don't go through something extreme. So I don't blame them. It's a societal issue. It's a bigger epidemic than the coronavirus. So it's sort of, the only way I can see that changing is if we long-term make the big cultural sort of shifts and embed it in society, which takes a long time. But I guess it shows, the importance of having these sort of conversations. But another thing I wanted to ask you was,
you said about sustainability, I think that's such an important word, because I think so much of the time we try and create unsustainable goals and circumstances, because I'm not saying you can't achieve. I think like I'm really proud of myself for like defying, like things could be a whole lot worse for me. And I know that I've, like I said to you about optimization, I know I found these kind of really positive ways to make the best of the situation. And it's enabled me to live, you know, a better life than what I could have been living. And I'm really grateful for that. But I found a way to do it sustainably so that actually does, you know, pan out and I'm not up and down all the time. And I'm, you know, because there have been times where, like you said about where you're chasing the outside, I think we try and do things, get things, or fill ourselves up with things that aren't always the best things for us, but it's the only way that makes us feel what we consider to be satisfied. And it's sometimes when we have to have those points of being stripped away to realize what we really need.
Exactly. And what I was going to ask you as well, how important has it been for you on that journey with the people that you do and don't have in your life? Because I know, you know, for myself and from what I've learned, it's such a bigger thing that a lot of the time we realize. And if I look back to my 20s when I was grappling with a lot of things, I had so many toxic people in my life, and that would deeply affect me. And probably the biggest, you know, game changer for me has been just, you know, once I sort of worked out how I operate and what I need, it's been making sure that I don't allow people that are not healthy for me in my life. Has that been a big thing for you?
Well, actually, interesting. And I know a lot of people in your situation who've said this. So there have been one or two people, but what I am really lucky with, there are some people who sat with me beside that bed in those early days. And there are some of those people that are still with me today, and they're bloody legends. Yeah. And I'm really grateful. But I have definitely encountered where there have been people in my life that maybe haven't been very good for me. And yeah, I find that is for me, I think it's really hard letting go of people or things, even if we know we need to, but I mean, often I'm sure you found this, life then has really shitty ways of removing those people maybe from your life, and it can feel very painful. It can hurt, but actually it's only in hindsight after you're like, okay, I understand this. But it's rejection, right? You know, I always say this to people, it comes down to loss and rejection. If we uncover underneath all of our human stuff, loss is something that has an impact on us all. And I think that, you know, it's often at the root of so many things, and none of us like to feel loss. It feels the most horrible thing. That's what those kind of situations trigger, isn't it? But yeah, I think having good people in your life, and I know for me that has been key, having people that will support you and back you essentially and say, even if I don't understand, I still love you. And I mean, that is powerful. If someone says, I love you, even if I don't get this, and, I back you, I support you, that's really good. And I think we need more of that. But I think a lot of the time people, because of the way we do get disconnected in life with our busyness, with our, what we're chasing, it can sometimes disconnect us, that we disconnect from people, that then even our human relationships aren't fully whole, aren't fully loving, on these kind of things that fill up our well, but they're actually things that drain us. So I think it's, for me, that has been vital and important, but also the loss of people that haven't been good for me, I've actually found very painful, but I understand it now.
Yeah, letting go. I find that still so difficult with every part of life. Like letting go of anything. You get attached to things, and it's such a difficult thing to do. But I guess it's part of life, isn't it? We have to deal with that, because that's just always going to continue to happen in life. But it's difficult. It's really hard.
My friend jokes to me when I say, she's like, Hannah's advice: you've got to surrender, babe. You've got to let go. But I'm not gonna it's just surrender, Nick, but at the end
just surrender, and
Yeah, I'm not going to pretend it's easy because, like you say, I know I've got the tools sometimes to deal with things, but I still fucking struggle with surrender or letting go, or, the whole thing of trust the process. And it's like, I don't want to fucking trust the process.
Exactly. You want to feel good right now. But I think that's a really good point what you made there, because like I've grappled with this, and I know a lot of people who get into sort of the wellness sort of world go too far the other way, where they say, "Oh no, it's just like letting go and feeling good all the time, and it's okay, don't worry." It's like, no, I do feel worried. I'm aware. I'm doing my best, and you know what? It's okay to be struggling right now. And I was talking to my psychologist last week, and I was sort of telling him about moving to New York and the struggles that came with it. And I was like, I'm like, what have I done? It's like, this is so hard. I had an easier life in Australia. And he just reminded me, it is good to be uncomfortable. It's good to be even suffering and struggling through things, because you're going to grow. And this is all, don't look at it in that black and white way that, oh no, but it just embrace it and feel good. It's like, no, I'm struggling. And you know what? That's okay. That's actually a lot of growth is going to come out of that. And that's actually made me feel really empowered and gave me a good reminder, because I was like, it really means no matter what situation you're in, you can look at it with that frame of mind that I'm either going to, things are going to go smoothly or how I want them to, or if it's a struggle, that doesn't matter as well. It's just as positive, maybe even more positive, because through struggling, I'm going to have to really confront myself and explore and open my mind, and it forces you to grow. So there's not really, it's again, like you said, that gray area in life. We're taught to see things black and white, which is just not how the world works. It's the gray area is always the actual meaningful part of life. And that's what we need to learn to, be able to see more of that.
And I think you've touched upon something really important that I think is such an important conversation: toxic positivity. Like, I am a naturally positive person, like I'll admit that, but what I also think we need to do is not fucking bypass. And there is a lot, like what you said about the work, like I think there's like two sides to this. You've got like the kind of what's regularly going on, and then you've got this extreme other side that's, some of the concepts are great, some of the things they're saying are great, but like I look at when I was trying to like quote unquote help myself and heal myself, I was encountering situations sometimes where I was feeling guilty, punishing myself, like really struggling because what I was doing, my body wasn't responding to. And I was blaming myself, like there was something I was doing wrong because maybe I didn't want this enough. But actually, the truth is, some things are going to work for people, some things are not going to work for people. It doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. And I had to really reframe that. I'd got myself in this kind of weird, fucked up, toxic positivity mindset where I was, so far stuck in that end. And I think it's so important that if you're feeling, if you're going through something bad, or you're feeling upset, or you're feeling angry, we need to feel those emotions. We need to process them. It took me a long time, Nick, to actually feel angry about what had happened, because it was a really powerful thing when I actually, because I was crying a lot, but it was like grief. When I felt angry, that helped me heal. And I think sometimes in situations like, often like, obviously I took this quite spiritual path, and I'd always kind of weirdly been like that. Even pre this whole experience, I was like the weird friend that you had that was in school, being like, I was very alternative, but I'm thankfully accepted. But because of that, people are like, I thought spiritual people didn't get angry. It's okay to get fucking angry. And I think we really need to say it's okay. And I would want somebody to process that and to say that if you're in a shitty situation or something's happened, to feel angry about it and upset and have a little foot stamp. It doesn't mean negative things are going to happen. It doesn't mean a bad thing's going to happen. Actually, what it means is that you're able to process that, meet that emotion, meet yourself where you're at, and move through that. And when we do that, and we
absolutely.
and we meet other people, you know, like I'd rather sit with somebody, you know, like sit with a friend or sit with someone. And if they were struggling with something, like, come on, like share, like you're not being negative, share what's going on. And I think often when we get into like this whole, like, you know, what you're doing, like it's always this like, oh, you've got to keep your mind positive. No, you've got to keep your mind healthy. And that is sometimes going into the shadow and befriending the shadow and knowing that in the shadow, you can find light, you can find grace, you can find what actually was missing in that shadow and bring it back into the light and illuminate yourself. And actually things on the other side are better.
My name's Nick Bracks, and I'm a storyteller who has dedicated my entire adult life to creating positive conversations around mental health. In recent years, discussions around mental health have become less taboo and entered the mainstream vernacular. I've delivered over 1,000 mental health seminars around the globe, including several TED Talks, and I believe we all have a story to tell. In my book, Move Your Mind, I cover my story and stories from people that inspire me, as well as insights from world-leading mental health experts. This book will help you to learn how to recognise mental health issues before they become a problem. Use your personal challenges as motivators, take ownership of your well-being, and create new daily habits that increase happiness and reduce stress. Exactly. And, you know, life's not about feeling good all the time. And I think it's, again, comes down to this thing that we've been taught in society, that happiness is this high that we want to reach. And it's, you know, it's achieving huge things, feeling great all the time, having the perfect family and relationship, and it's like, well, that's not happiness. That's effort. And that's using external factors to feel good. And it's, of course, we want those things, or we want, you know, we all want different things and we want to try and get them. But happiness is actually just that contentment that I know I'm going to be okay. That inner peace that if I feel bad, that's okay. If I feel good, that's okay. If I have this or don't have this, that's what it is. And, you know, I've got friends where it is that toxic positivity where it's, you know, you meet them and, oh, everything's amazing. It's so good. How nice is this? How nice is it? And it's like, whoa, you know, like, can I just relax and just take this in rather than keep commenting on how amazing everything is? And it's like and then you feel guilty. You're like, hang on, I feel like I'm like being like really a downer here because this person's, you know, so excited. But then I also can feel that this isn't real. You're not, can you just please, but then they don't have that ability to be honest because they're trying to mask it with, you know, it's okay. It's okay if you don't love everything. Like, it's just exhausting. You know, it's a different kind of, that, you know, not non-realism sort of behavior.
Absolutely. And I joke about this. So I read tarot and oracle cards. Like I do readings for people sometimes. And a friend of mine jokes that when she picks herself a card or she doesn't like the card, she puts it back in the box to get a better one. And I always say to people, if I'm like reading them, you know, doing a reading for someone, even if you get, should we say, the shitty cards, there's always a way to look at it to be able to use that as a springboard, that obviously that's showing up in that reading for a reason. And actually, rather than looking at it as like, oh my God, like that's going to be terrible, being like, okay, how can I use that to move forward in the right way for me? And I think it is like that you can't just keep putting the bad cards back in. I say, babe, you can't put the bad cards back in the pack. You know, like it's
exactly.
Yeah. Like I joked a couple of months ago. Well, exactly. A couple of months ago, I thought I liked this person, and every time I was pulling an oracle card, I was like, I'm going to pull a card about this. I was getting not for you. The thing is, Nick, I got so pissed off. I was like, fucking, I'm taking that card out of the pack. I am not having to. My friend was like, maybe it's telling you the truth, Hannah. And I was like, I think it is.
Yeah.
But I think it comes down to that we try and avoid it, we try and mask it, or we try and like find a way to like band-aid. You know, I do think we're still in this society where we try and band-aid things. You cannot put a band-aid over things. The wound underneath, if we don't deal with that, is going to fester. And even if it doesn't, initially, it can also come in layers as well. And I think, like how some people think they've got a handle on it and they can keep that Band-Aid, it's going to come out at some point.
100%. It's going to come out, you'll just have to keep, the behavior will get more extreme to the point where you just can't sustain that, going back to sustainability. It's not sustainable, but you do. And like you said, in dating and relationships, you see it a lot where it's this thing that fixating on, that exciting feeling about, I really want this person. And almost we can fall into, and I know I've fell into that as well, where it's like looking at, but if I just get, that's going to be so amazing. Everything's in it. It's like that Hollywood, what we've been taught about romantic sort of thing. But normally when you have that feeling, it often is actually the wrong person, or, if it's going to happen, it happens organically. And if it's too, much of that exciting feeling at the beginning, often there's not the actual substance, because that takes time to build, like you're not meant to, it's meant to be like your, best friend, or that unconditional feeling that you have with a family member where you know that no matter what, you've got each other's back. And it's that strong, not overwhelming feeling, that very calm sort of strong feeling that you have there. But that's a whole nother topic, I guess, the relationship side of things.
I think so. And I think actually, in truth, I know this sounds, and again, it's a break in the grain of society. I think a lot of the time, if we feel this like over buzzing feeling, sometimes it's actually simply as just somebody having sex with somebody and maybe having a good time and then moving on. But obviously that's not quite conventional within our lines of in society of using those rules. Like what you say, like if sometimes for something that's more deeper, you're not always going to get that kind of, shall we say, the initial orgasmic feeling with somebody. It might be like an actual calmer feeling you're going to get. And I think, and again, I think it's because we've been so conditioned to put ourselves in boxes that it starts to impact how we then in our mind create these stories about how our human relationships should look. And that again impacts our mental health, because we think then we end up blaming ourselves or think there's something wrong with ourselves if something maybe isn't right, or something we are chasing isn't right for us. It comes down to this kind of cycle of doom, as I call it. And it's almost breaking that cycle and saying, I don't have to totally comply to these rules. I need to listen to what I'm actually feeling and, not follow the grain always. Or if you do feel inclined to kind of engage with something that maybe because I always say to people, like, I said to a friend like about a year ago, with somebody, I was like, maybe you just need to have sex with this person. And she was like, I can't do that. And I was like, why not? Who said? And I think, using quite an extreme version of that, because it's quote unquote quite a taboo thing to say, it scares people because that's not in the rule book. People are going to judge me. People are going to think I'm XYZ. But unless we break down those things and start to say it's okay to do that, and it comes back to safety, because for so long I didn't feel safe in my body, and I realized it was a real coming home moment for me when I realized that I'd spent so long at war with myself that I hadn't created that safety inside of myself. And how could I expect to feel that with the people around me sometimes if I didn't create that safety inside of myself? And I think we all need to be helping each other come back to that place of safety. And then we're creating containers with each other that are totally transformative, and, containers where it feels safe. You can still grow, you can still expand, but it's in a more grounded way, and it's in a way where we're not seeking those quick fixes, those highs.
Yeah, exactly. And just being open to not, again, it goes back to that grey area of not having to see everything as black and white. And, if you are feeling something, it might not mean it's going to be the be all and end all, but you can still explore it, or we don't have to have all of the answers at once. We can sort of be open to different things and not label everything, because we've been taught so many rigid rules about convention and how we're meant to live our lives that isn't going to work for everyone.
it's what you just said, the answers. We feel like we need to know the answers. And I think as well, it comes down to this thing that some people struggle with, what is my purpose? How can I find my purpose? What should I be doing? Well, I think it's coming back to, like, if you're questioning that, it's coming back to yourself and checking in with yourself, because that is not outside of you. That answer is not outside of you. That answer is, and it's so cliche when we say the answer's inside of you. I get it. Yeah. And for anyone listening, they're like, oh my God, that is, but essentially at its core, with a good emotional regulation, often the answers and the solutions we need are inside of us. Yeah. It's finding that balance, and it's finding the strength to listen. And it comes down to a deep sense of listening to yourself, but also sometimes listening to the outside allows you to see what you don't want as well, and actually using that in a positive way, that if you are kind of stuck in the outside, okay, how does that really feel in my body? How does that feel, deep inside of me? And I think when we start to do that and ask how it feels in our body, then we get a lot of answers.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's, if you take it back to that, that's where all the answers come from. And it's why, people like Tony Robbins make so much money, because it's really selling. All they're really doing is selling to these people that, instead of, teaching them how to look within, it's saying, no, I know that everyone wants to find purpose and meaning. Come and pay $10,000 to come and stand up and chant and do that for 2 days, and you're going to find your meaning and purpose. And then they go home and they're like, hang on, how come I haven't found it yet? And people will search all these different areas to find it, but it's like, you can't. You're not going to just find it like that. You got to be taught how to, there's no silver bullet to this stuff. It's about exploring within yourself, taking that step back and realizing that there's never going to be a complete answer, but your purpose is not going to just magically come from, like an acquisition.
I think as well, it's understanding that no matter how much you try to box it up in let's say a Tony Robbins weekend, you have to actually go on the journey and sometimes experience it, and experience the highs, the lows. And I guess you have to experience getting it wrong. And I think we don't like getting it wrong, do we? That's like really hard. I don't know about you, Nick. I hate it. I hate it. Like I just, I still sometimes get cross now if I'm like, but then I'm like, actually, it's okay. It's safe for me to be wrong. It's safe for me to not have it how I wanted it. And I think when I moved back into that place, I remember, and, does what matter? And I remember this point when I was really, really unwell, like to the point of, basically going for a wee was difficult. I know that sounds extreme, but it was true. And I remember thinking, God, when we're stripped back, you suddenly realize what's fucking important. And when you're like, for me, there were times when my body hasn't always played ball, and I am humbled by that. And if there's anything that surrenders me, I'm like, okay, I'm listening. But I still do it now sometimes, like for years, in those early years, I was up and down because I'd be like, okay, I feel like I can do this X, Y, Z. So I would like go at it hard, Nick, like go all in. And then like the impact, the payback on my body used to be like, okay, that wasn't a good plan. And, my mum used to say to me sometimes like, are you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely going to do this, Mum. I mean, thankfully, she didn't always I told you so, but, it's still hard sometimes, because I think if anybody's got any desire or drive in them, we're going to try and push a little. But it's definitely regulating with that as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and do you have things that, just for anyone listening, do you have daily things that you do that you recommend or that work for you? Whether it's meditation or mindfulness practices or I don't know, whatever it is. Like, do you have some daily things that you do that keep you sort of grounded and feeling good?
Absolutely. And I've been doing this in a fairly committed way for a very, very long time now. Definitely meditation. I will meditate no matter what at that night time. So I definitely meditate, usually in the morning, in the evening, or if I ever get called in the middle of the day. If I need a rest now, sometimes I need to rest. I will do some form of more like a body visualization, but meditation for sure. And I commit to that. It could be like 2:00 in the morning. I could be in bed, like whatever I'm doing, I will meditate, Nick. I was once, when I met a friend for the first time in the physical and we went to bed, she said to me, "What are you doing?" I was like, "I'm meditating." And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah." I said, "It doesn't matter even if you sleep with me." Like, not in that way, but I was like, I meditate no matter what's going on. And that for me has been really key. But the other thing has been gratitude. And pretty much every single day I write down some things I'm grateful for. And also for me, I'm really big on embodiment and reconnecting back to our body. So for me, I like to put some music on and just sit and take 5-10 minutes to just connect back to my body. And I think, don't want to go too risque, but I do think learning our own self-pleasure, and I'm sorry if I'm like crossing a line here, Nick, I think
that's all good.
I think it's really important. I think we need to understand however, especially like often situations in life that make us not feel good, that don't make us feel, should we say, sexy, whatever. And it's not just about sexiness. This is about embodiment and reconnection. If we can find ways, man, woman, that help us understand our own pleasure and we can work from that space, it will really change your life. And obviously there's just so much taboo around that. And there's so much, people try and make rules around it. But I think, this is a huge problem in society that we're not talking about it enough. We're not encouraging each other enough to do that and understand ourselves in that way, that it will really change things. Because when we understand embodiment, it helps on the outside us move into the right place. And so, for me, that's really important. And it has been important. My friends used to be like, "Oh my God, you're so wild and controversial." And it's quite interesting for me now because there's been quite recent times. There's been a lot more talk about this. I was seen as so controversial to like all my girlfriends, like even some of the guys around me used to be like, "Oh my God, you're so out there, Hannah. Like, you're so like, I wouldn't want you to talk about this." But actually, we should be talking about this with everyone. And I'm really glad that I've asked my friends sometimes, the guys and the girls, like, what's going on there? Like, how are you connecting with yourself in that way? Because if we open up to that conversation with people and deepen that trust with that, and people are like, "Oh my God, I'm experiencing this," or "I feel disconnected in this way," and they might have been feeling shame. All of a sudden you've removed that shame because someone's like, no, I feel like that sometimes too. You change everything. And I think we haven't covered shame, but I think that's a massive thing in all of these factors we've talked about. If something's going wrong in our lives or we're not feeling good, and like what you said about the whole happiness thing, we feel shame. And none of us like that feeling. And if we can openly say to someone, if you say to me, I'm feeling like shit today, and you're feeling like, and someone hears you and holds that space, that shame has been removed because you're allowed, someone's saying it's okay to feel shit, you're allowed. So that's what I do on a kind of daily. Exactly. You're allowed to feel. That's my practices, like on a kind of daily basis. And obviously like reading positive things, putting music on, singing, just kind of doing things that feel good to me. And I think making a commitment, because I think a lot of the time we make time excuses, right? Like, I can't do that because I don't have the time. And I remember reading or listening, I can't remember which teacher it was or person I was reading, they said, "But do you have time to feel like shit?" And it's so true. And I know that's quite triggering for some people to hear. But you know what? Even if you take 5 minutes, like, it's only 5 minutes. And if you consistently, if you think all I've got time for is like a few minutes and you commit to that, that is way better than going in for like crash and burn, doing all the practices, or, you know, being like, oh my God, I found these 5 things I need to do and it's going to take X, Y, Z. But then you only do it like once a month, or, you know.
Yeah.
And I always say to people in meditation and to put a timer on for 5 minutes and just sit there. And I know people are like, what? Just sit for 5 minutes. And something will happen eventually. And I've done this. I've got people around me to commit to this. Something happens that shifts and you need that 5 minutes. And I will push the boundary and say, get it up to 10 minutes if you can. But if you can do that every single day of your life and do nothing else, and you're just connecting, coming back into your body, feeling, you know, yourself against the place where you're in, feeling, you know, your heart, your, you know, coming back in, you will create an equilibrium you didn't even know existed before.
Exactly. And I think people look at things like meditation again in that very mathematical black and white way where, oh no, but I'm not good at meditating. I can't be still in it, or I did it wrong. I can't do it. And it's like you said, you don't even have to have a mantra or anything. Just sit still. And even if your mind is absolutely racing, that's still going to help because you're giving yourself that time out to try and let these thoughts process themselves. There's no right or wrong. And, you know, I've had so many times where I do like Vedic or transcendental meditation, so 20 in the morning and 20 at night. And a lot of the time I'm sitting there and my mind's wandering and racing and, you know, you feel like there's no point, but it still is beneficial. It's just giving yourself, your mind's like still processing different things. So it's, I think it's again changing how we frame that.
And I think you hit the nail on the head when you said so many people come up with it. Oh, I can't meditate. I tried. And I feel like saying to them, did you try for like 5 minutes, babe? Did you try?
No, exactly.
Did you try for a day? And also, like, I think I understand where this comes from because often if people enter into, shall we say, the wellness spectrum and say they choose a field of things, yoga, a certain type of thing, often these things come with, oh, you have to do it in this way, or it's not going to work. Yeah. I really call bullshit on that because it's shit.
Yeah, I think sort of anything where someone's saying do it this way or it's not going to work or this is, you know, any of that sort of talk is almost bordering into like cult-like behavior where and you see it everywhere. You see it in the fitness industry. Join my, 10-week program. I've got the formula, or go on this diet. This is how you get this, or, any of that stuff. That's, there's no one solution. It's all complicated. It's a combination of things. It's finding what works for you. So I think that's again, for anyone listening to this, I think it's a really great point. And I'll go into the final questions in a second. But I think that final point you made, that learn, it's just taking in information and being able to make decisions for yourself based on what's presented, not seeing things as gospel or black and white, because it's different for everyone. And, look at that as a warning sign. If someone says to you, this is the way to do it, then, okay, maybe I should question that and have a look at what other options are available.
Really. And also don't be afraid to do that. I mean, like when you said about the diets, when I was trying to not for weight, to actually get healthy, shall we say, like how I could help myself. I tried so many diets to the point of like, so-and-so be like, oh, this is going to sort out your digestive issues. This is going to do this. This is going to help you with this. And I got to a point where I realized I was just, I wasn't listening to myself. I was listening to all this outside noise, and I needed to become more, as soon as I became intuitive with things, it changed everything. I knew the things that I needed to do, and I
just simplified everything.
Yeah. And it's continually, we are being called to strip it back. We are continually being called to question. And remember always, there is no one path, shall we say, to, that there is no one path to anything. There are many paths, and that's the kind of amazing thing that we're faced with, is actually it's finding the way that works for you, and walking that road in the way that's working for you.
No, I think, I couldn't agree more, and love all the stuff you've talked about here. So thank you again for, sharing all of that and being so open about all of it. We finish every episode with these same 5 questions just to see sort of the different answers that come up. So these can be sort of, short one-line type answers or whatever comes to mind. And it's just sort of a thing that we finish with. So hopefully I don't catch you on the spot too much. Nothing too crazy. But the first one is, what is your the best childhood memory that comes to mind for you?
I used to like ice skating. So I got to skate. I mean, I don't know if anyone, there was a really famous skating duo called Torvill and Dean. They got 666.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I met them, Nick, and I fell over on the ice.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it still excites me now. That is my favorite childhood memory, I'd say. One of them. I mean, that's such a great question because, we have many, but that probably is it still makes me happy now. Even when that's a
great one. Yeah.
Yeah. And when I see them on TV, I'm like, oh my God.
That back. But I mean, and that's one of the points of that one. And I do this in, some of my talks as well. It's sort of going back to, the gratitude sort of journaling and things like that. It's pretty simple. Like just then, like what you said, you think about that and then it changes your whole, it just makes you feel good and your whole body language and everything. And it's something we can all do daily. Let's just, sit there. And that's what the gratitude journaling is. Think about, what are some positive things? What are some things that mean something to me? And, you can change your whole psychology and your whole physiology by doing it. So it's an important thing. What would you say is currently the biggest burden on mental health in society?
I think that the pressure that people are being forced to put on themselves, and I think also men, I think having, if I'm honest, obviously I of course I recognize this is for everyone, but having lost a friend who, to be honest, one of the loves of my life to male suicide, I want men to feel that they don't have to go the route that he went. And that when it came down to it, and I know this isn't a totally short answer, Nick, and I'm sorry, but I just wanted, he basically, I said to him one day, do other people know what's going on? Because we've been like childhood friends since we were 13, 14. And he said to me one day, there's just no point, Hannah. I've tried everything. There's no point. And people, when he died, Nick, on his Facebook wall, people were saying I had no clue. And I think it's about really addressing with men in society. And that's a really good question, but also obviously there are so many other factors, but I think it's bringing that up to say to men that, it's okay. It's safe to talk. It's safe for you to break basically, and you can fix again and you don't have to break totally.
Yeah,
exactly.
No, it's and it is, especially in men. I think it is. There's so much more that needs to be done. A lot of the time, they sort of men don't know, where to go, how to talk about it, and it's a horrible thing.
There's shame as well, isn't there? It's like that whole macho thing of I'm okay. Yeah. When actually.
Exactly.
And then I think that then translates, I know this sounds crazy, I think that translates into aggression, it translates into problems in relationships, simply because if we stripped it back to the point of, okay, what's going on, tell the truth, and someone's like, I need to have a breakdown, they wouldn't have to respond in, often our behaviors are responses from really what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a good point. And do you see things in 10 years' time improving in society when it comes to that area with mental health?
So, I mean, I think that's
in the next decade, yeah.
I think that's a rhetorical question, Nick, because essentially, yes, I'd like to think they would, and hopefully they will. Hopefully, through all of what everybody's doing now, who's having these positive conversations, I think it's going to come to the younger generations. How old are you, Nick? You're in your 34. So I'm in my late 30s, 38. So I think it comes down to the fact there are a younger generation that, we've had the effects, but we've not been affected by social media like that younger generation have. And that, I think, I'd like to think there can be a real shift there, because it kind of freaks me out to think there are these young girls that look like way older and way more like, and they're putting all this pressure on themselves to look a certain way, to be, and men as well, obviously, because guys want to look buff or look good. And there's all this kind of weird pressure and it's sexualized, but not in a positive way. So I think if we can turn things like that around and break down to say to people, you're just seeing an image of somebody looking really good. That's not the whole picture. Because like, you could be the most, we know this because we've seen it. You could be the most amazing, beautiful, stunning, whatever person, but you can feel absolutely fucking broken on the inside. But you could see a picture on somebody's Instagram of them looking shit hot, and people are liking that and subscribing to that. And I think it's just pulling it back to telling the truth about what's going on. And that's.
Yeah, no, 100%. And you see it in, the modeling industry, a lot of these people in that realm. So it's, it's very common.
Really is.
So just two more. Final two are, what's your personal definition of happiness?
Centered and grounded and, safe in my body. To feel that deep sense of love and connection to kind of, I guess, whatever you want to define, source, God, to know that feeling of feeling calm and centered. That to me is happiness. Not, yes, I like all the outside things. I like all, but when it comes down to it, I know what it's like to feel stripped to nothing. And I know how good it feels to feel in my center. And that to me is happiness. Yep.
Perfect. And the final one, what would you say is the most courageous thing you've ever done?
Probably, I guess, really owning I'd say it is courageous, because even now I'm like, oh my God, I feel cringy saying it. The disability thing, because for me, that was really hard because I don't define myself by that. But it's something that is part of me, and having to really own that and actually own it, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of the time there's so many, that's a whole nother conversation, but there's so much, I think because we don't, have those open conversations around that, I think even I felt like I was entering into a space where I had my own judgments. And then I was suddenly faced with being that person. Do you know what I mean? So for me, it was courageous when I remember the first times when when I'm out on my own, or, when I've been in London or I've been on trains and people have, that's when I've really had to step into courage. And for me, that's probably been it, where I've been like, fuck it. Do you know what? I hope people are staring at me because they think I'm hot. Rather than, because sometimes, I've switched it. And probably sometimes I think I would obviously create these stories in my head, but actually sometimes I think it comes down to the fact that people are probably just being like, oh, that's not what I'd normally expect to associate with that a lot of the time. Whereas I was thinking all these bad things. Sometimes people are looking or thinking stuff, or curiosity, just because we're human. And I try and switch it to how would I feel if I was in that situation? Would I look at that person and think, oh my God, she looks not what I would expect? And I think that for me has been what probably for courageous, because suddenly the image thing that we have, I suddenly no longer could hide behind that, so to speak.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that's a huge one, and it so relevant to everyone really in different ways. So I just want to say to you, thank you for making the time. I've really enjoyed chatting to you. I think we've covered so many interesting things, and it's been great to connect with you. So thank you for doing it.
Pleasure. It's been really great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. Thanks so much to Hannah Wallace for joining me today for Move Your Mind. And just another reminder that the Move Your Mind book is now available globally. You can find all of the links at nickbracks.com/book. And the Move Your Mind community is now live. It's something we've put a huge amount of effort into. We're so excited to share it with you all. We've got live events, we've got courses, we've got ongoing content loading into it. Most importantly, it's a place where we can all learn and grow together. It's got private communities within the group, and it's something that we just can't be more proud of, and we want you all to join and be part of it. You can find all of the links at moveyourmind.me.